If you're a semiconductor or IoT professional, you know that understanding your supply chain management needs requires knowing where you are in your operations ramp cycle and what needs you'll have at each stage. While each semiconductor or IoT company will have unique requirements in its production process, Tensoft's experience has shown that ramp cycles are very similar across this industry. This video discusses the growth phases in a startup's life cycle.
Typically, companies have a ramp to face the headwinds and sort of the challenges we see on a day-to-day basis in this sector. And so we typically see companies go through what we call a 3 growth phase life cycle. We've termed it the path from chaotic ramp to production clarity. And there's 3 distinct phases, which we'll go through now. The first stage is called the pre-ramp stage, where we prepare for getting into our production. Some of you may be here today, maybe you're beyond that. The point is that there are very specific requirements in that initial stage that we need to address. And for those of you that are in a pre-revenue model currently, obviously those are getting through tape out, through first silicon, getting to a point where you can actually acquire and get a design win with one or more large OEMs, hopefully, in the process. That also takes time. Those design wins and getting those sockets can be a long process in terms of bidding and qualification. And because the product cycles, as we mentioned earlier, are short, if we're talking about one major phone release, it can be a 1-year cycle initially with a end run afterwards. But because we have large folks out there putting out a new major phone version every year, you could be designed in and then designed out in a fairly rapid state. And so we need to be looking at this from a standpoint of multiple chips, not just one product family, if we're looking to scale beyond a certain level without the risk volatility of revenue up and then ultimately revenue down. We also need to demonstrate auditable systems to get those design wins. And in terms of investment credibility, we have to meet milestones to get the funding, that we are out searching for, and then also releases as we go in terms of those milestone achievements. Many of you are probably at the second stage, which is basically production ramp, where we're deploying processes, systems to try and manage through what we all look for, which is hockey stick growth. But we typically have lean resources. Lots of people wear hats or multiple hats across the business. It's hard to understand all of the constraints we have across our supply chain, especially when we're dealing with companies over 8, 9, 10 different time zones and multiple suppliers in the process. So understanding things such as cost drivers and shifting to the volatility we can see in our demand cycles becomes more complex. What's interesting is semiconductor and sensor companies have the same complexity at $1 million in revenue as they do at 100 million. The only difference is really the level of volume of production and product families. But the complexity to build that chip, to ship it, to produce it, and to deliver it on time is equal. So if we look at the next stage, as we ramp through that deployment stage into the production breadth, what we've done is we've tried to set the stage for a real volume environment. If we don't get that second stage correct, it makes the ability to move into the extend stage quite tenuous, because now we don't have systems or processes that are specific to A, our industry, and B, to really scale. Because ultimately, people can only be the process for so long. And as we get into this production breadth stage, we're looking at going beyond just managing, initially the supply chain and having a strong structure in place, but really trying to match and optimize supply and demand as we get into higher quantities of shipments. We're trying to actually look at multiple vendor strategies, right, in terms of second sourcing and backups. We're looking at much more reach in terms of those global distribution agreements. And we might be looking to do an IPO in the process, and so therefore there are lots of investor expectations we need to meet, and obviously compliance requirements well beyond ISO, and now getting into things such as Sarbanes-Oxley. So if you look at this startup life cycle, we've talked about this. We've gone through the 3 unique phases, the pre-ramp, the production ramp, and the production breadth. And we believe today in our discussions, we'll give you some additional framework and tools to think about how you prepare, deploy, and extend the business as you ramp. One last thought I'd like to leave you with before I hand the baton over to our other speaker is we believe one of the first things a company can do and should do, and to make a necessary priority, is to optimize your business flows specific to the industry processes. And so these are 3 examples of what are considered mega processes across your typical business systems and departmental requirements. That's order to cash, procure to pay, and what we've determined or called the inventory value chain. And while these 3 pillars may look familiar to you at a high level, the actual steps, tasks, functions, and features required to achieve this are 100% specific to the way you actually manage your business. And for Tensoft, having been in this space for 18 years, we believe this is the glue that helps a startup scale.